Thanks for staying up later. Pete Rose is back. Hope you were with us last night. We covered as much as we could in half an hour. Can't go back over that ground. We forged right ahead, picking up where we left off. How would you feel if, for whatever reason, you never made it to the Hall of Fame? You're 70 years old, and you're still not in the Hall of Fame.
There's nothing I can do about it, Bob. You know, I've always been the type of guy that I don't worry about something I'm not in control of. I might add that I was in control of the Hall of Fame for 24 years as a player, and I think I took control pretty good. I'm not in control of the voters. I'm not in control of the committee at the Hall of Fame. Like I said earlier, I would be the happiest guy in the world to go to the Hall of Fame because I understand what it means. And if you're asking me, was I a Hall of Fame player? Yeah, I think I was a Hall of Fame player. But if I go, I go. If I don't, you know, I don't go home every night and pray that I go to the Hall of Fame. Like I wasn't as concerned about not being on the ballot this past year as I was for my buddy Tony Perez. And I'm sincere when I say that. Because I knew I wasn't going to be on the ballot. I wasn't down in the dumps the day that the Hall of Fame voting come out. I would be down in the dumps if I was ever on the ballot and didn't make it. I would be real disappointed. That'd be the biggest blow could happen to me.
You know what I think could happen if you ever got back on the ballot? I think you might not make it on the first ballot because some guys would see that as their protest, and then the next year they would vote for you overwhelmingly.
Well, I hear guys. I don't quite understand it either. I mean, I hear, and getting back to what I said earlier, if I didn't make it on the first ballot, I wouldn't want to make it.
Have you thought about what you would say?
What?
At the Hall of Fame?
No, not at all, because that'd be a teary-eyed, you know, that'd be a real soap opera. I think that you could probably sell seats at Yellowstone Park for that induction. What do you think?
I think there'd be a few people there.
Well, yeah, but there'll be a few people there, and we're thinking differently now, I think, because I think that you think there'll be a lot of people there. I think I'm going to start bad-mouthing everybody, and that's not going.
No, I don't think
the way it's going to be.
I think they just want to see how emotional you were, and they know it was history making.
Well, it's just like, let me explain something to you, and you'll agree with it or disagree with it. In 1985, when I broke the record, when I was at first base at Cincinnati, I can't tell you how I would think, and I don't know. You could ask 160-some guys, but I would think what happened to me that night at first base is a little bit like a Hall of Fame induction. Because what happens at a Hall of Fame induction, if I'm not mistaken, is you're up there and you're in front of all the world, and you start thinking about, you get a long standing ovation. Matter of fact, I got a 9-minute standing ovation that night. Until you get a 9-minute standing ovation, you really can't explain what goes through your insides. And what went through my insides is, and I think it's the same thing as if a guy's standing in front of the podium at the Hall of Fame, what you start thinking about people who are responsible for you being there. And in most cases, they're deceased, whether it was your father, whether it was your grandpa, whether it was your high school coach, whether it was your Little League coach. And I think that's what brings the tears to so many people's eyes, that the people who aren't there to celebrate with them. It's just like that night at first base, what people saw, and they didn't even realize it, they saw three generations of Pete Roses go before their eyes in 9 minutes. They saw Pete Rose get the hit. They saw Pete Rose II come out and embrace his dad, and he left. Then they saw Pete Rose look up at his dad, who was in heaven, and start thinking about how important he was for me being there. And people were stunned that I had feelings. I mean, that night, more people probably cried that night at Riverfront Stadium than any sporting event in the history of sports. It's because I've had this love affair with the Cincinnati fans for all those years, and half the people at the ballpark that night knew my father and knew what he meant to me. They knew my son, they knew what he meant, what he means to me. And I think it's a lot like the Hall of Fame. So, you know, I'm not looking forward to that breakdown, because I know it's going to be a breakdown. It's got to be. It's just got to be, because that's the way it is.
I hope this isn't too personal, but young Pete is an adult.
22.
Professional baseball player.
Cleveland.
But Tyler is, what, 7 or 8?
7.
And you've got a daughter who's 2. 2.
I got a daughter who's 27, too. Fawn. Don't forget her. I get in trouble every time I forget her.
The children from your first marriage are adults. How do you think you'll explain what happened to the younger kids?
Well, I think I can handle that because it's just like I can handle, I explained to my son why I went to prison. That's, if you talk about, you know, sitting in front of Uberoff and Mr. Vincent and Mr. Giamatti, or you talk about sitting in front of a federal judge, there's nothing as tough as leaving your son at home the day you're getting in a car to go to prison for 5 months. I know you'll never experience that, but or nothing's as tough as saying goodbye to your son on a Friday, knowing he's coming back to visit you on a Saturday, or on a Saturday, knowing he's coming back on a Sunday. It never got any easier. Even the last time that he left Marion, which was a Sunday, and he was coming back the next day to pick me up to go home, it never got easy. It never got easy.
Just for those who might not know, the gambling problems with baseball were one thing, and you were sent to prison, federal prison in Marion, Illinois, for underreporting on your income taxes.
Yeah, I underpaid by 6%, right.
But in your case, that was hundreds of thousands.
That was 162,000. Not hundreds of thousands.
Well, okay.
There's the press again.
That was
162,000.
accidental error. How bad was it?
But I might add, and I think you'll verify this, that 999 out of 1,000 guys who underpay by 6% do not go to prison.
Why do you think you did?
Well, you answered me that question. I paid, like I said, I owed the government $162,000. 2 weeks before I went to prison, I paid the government $366,000. I paid them $204,000 in penalties and interest and fines. But they wanted more than money. They wanted blood, and they got it. I didn't complain. I went. I did my time. I did it like a man.
You think there's anything to the argument from baseball standpoint? Look, if we reinstate Pete Rose, we're soft-pedaling the deterrent. The cardinal rule in baseball, lots of guys haven't been saints in lots of their activities, drinkers, carousers, whatever, but the cardinal rule in baseball is gambling. We got to stay away from that. We can't have a gambling scandal. And so if Joe Jackson's out for life, whatever,
yeah,
the deterrent factor
Bob,
is reduced.
You know,
I'm not saying I believe that, but I've heard people say it.
You know, I don't know a darn thing about Joe Jackson. All I know he was a great player. But you're talking apples and oranges now. I mean, if what they said was true, and this guy bet against his own team in the World Series. I mean, you know, I was never accused of throwing baseball games.
And even people who think you bet on baseball never say that you bet against the Reds.
I mean, I don't think it's really fair to compare Joe Jackson and Pete Rose. Plus, he was a better player than I was. So, you know, it's something happened in 1919. That's the biggest scandal in the history of baseball, the Black Sox series, if I'm not mistaken. It was against my hometown team. I was at that game. No, not quite.
It was, the White Sox and the Reds. See, I'll tell you what I think, for whatever my opinion is worth. And I've said this.
You got a good opinion because you know what's going on.
I've said this on the air.
That's why I'm here.
Before. I appreciate that. I've said that on the air, said this on the air before. I think you deserve to be banned from baseball, and I think that a period of time has to pass before you're officially reinstated, and certain things have to be clearly demonstrated before that time comes, and terms and conditions have to be in place, and you have paid a heavy price. You paid a price in terms of your livelihood, in terms of your reputation. Although it's not directly connected to baseball, you also did time on the income tax situation, and because of the media of the modern age, which other people haven't faced, all this is magnified. You've paid a price, and there's more price to pay. But the Hall of Fame is separate from that in my mind. How are they going to take away what you did on the field? If they want to keep you out for a while because they think it is unseemly for you to go in, fine. But eventually, you got to be in. Even if they put on the plaque somewhere, banned from baseball in 1989 through whenever, even if they do that, you got to be there.
Let me ask you a question. I don't understand this because I read this every once in a while. And I just don't understand what these guys are thinking about. I mean, am I missing something where I read a guy that's a writer for such and such a paper will make the statement that, well, even if he's eligible for the Hall of Fame, I'm not going to vote for him the first year. I mean, what gives this guy the right to take it upon himself to be a judge? I mean, I don't understand this at all.
Well, that right
I'm not going to vote for him the first year, but I'm going to vote for him the second.
And I have that right, and that's my protest vote. And you know what the guys at the Hall of Fame say? The guys at the Hall of Fame say they're concerned that some old-timers, and I'm not going to mention their names because they can speak for themselves, but some big names who always come back to Cooperstown each summer, they're afraid those guys won't come back if you're in. And you, a guy who loves the history of the game, must be especially hurt by that. I know you've heard it. I'm not the first one to tell you that some of these Hall of Fame directors are concerned about that.
I don't think there's too many Hall of Famers that are going to line up that are going to line up and not come because if I'm inducted into the Hall of Fame. I mean, I got a pretty good relationship with the Ted Williamses and the Joe DiMaggios and people like that because I played like them and they understand that.
See, I think compassion, if nothing else, compassion and proportion indicates the Hall of Fame's separate. I'll be there when you go in the Hall of Fame.
Oh, I appreciate that, but you know, what we're talking about for the last 15 minutes, you won't say it, but it sounds like I'd be better off if I was a drug dealer. Wouldn't I have been better off?
Truth of the matter is...
In the eyes of baseball?
Yeah, without my passing judgment on that, in the eyes of baseball, gambling is going to be more severe because some people who have been involved with drugs, admittedly, and who have been disciplined by baseball will become eligible for the Hall of Fame and will have something close to Hall of Fame credentials, and they may get in before you get in.
Here you got guys that have alcohol problems and gambling problems that could kill somebody on the way home. I can't kill anybody betting on Monday Night Football. I couldn't kill anybody going to the harness track, taking my wife and kids and eating.
But if they believe you bet on baseball, if they believe that, then they believe you've delivered a body blow to the integrity of the game. And to Giamatti, integrity, the high moral principle of the game was everything. He took it very seriously.
I understand that.
You view yourself then, now, as an honest man?
Oh, I've always been honest. As a matter of fact, I've been too honest. It's got me in a lot of trouble. It didn't early in my career, but I don't. Not only has baseball changed the last decade and a half or so, but society has changed and the media has changed. And believe it or not, a lot of times someone will ask you a question and you tell them the truth and they don't want to hear the truth because it don't make a story. And you know, I'm probably one of the top 5 interviews you ever had because I was honest. I didn't duck any questions. Did I duck any questions here tonight?
No, not at all.
I don't duck any questions.
But, you know, I guess honest could mean 2 things. Sometimes honest means speaking from the heart, being straightforward, being outspoken. And then there's technically honest as to always telling the truth in all situations. Some people might say Pete Rose is candid, but according to the evidence, they think he wasn't always honest.
Well, I don't want to keep getting back to that evidence, but that evidence and that, you know, I don't want to ask you, did you read the Dowd report?
Yeah, I did.
The whole 2,000 pages?
No.
Okay, you did what everybody else did. You read the 237
That's right.
page prosecutor's brief with a verdict on the end of it. That's what you read.
That's what I read. That's
now,
right.
You're going to tell me that a man's going to do a fair and impartial investigation on Pete Rose, and he's going to write 237 pages. Now, you know me, and he can come up with 2 positive paragraphs about me? 2 positive paragraphs in 237 pages? If you read the other 1,800 pages, which nobody, and I'm not criticizing you for not doing it because nobody did. Most of his allegations in the 237 pages are answered in the other 1,800 pages. But no one took time to do that. No one took time to do that. See how fast you jumped and said, yes, I did read the Dowd report. You didn't read the Dowd report.
I read the 237
You read what I call a prosecutor's brief with a verdict on the end of it. John Dowd is not a fair man.
Was Bart Giamatti a fair man?
Yes, I think Bart was a fair man because, like he said, and I'll say it, if you read the 237 pages, you have to believe I bet on baseball because the way he's got it.
Well, Giamatti had access to the other pages.
Well, his man did the investigating. What's he going to do? Go up there and say that I'm not so sure that so and so did this and so did that?
Your life like today? What's it
Great.
like day to day? The kids and your wife, and you're in Florida.
Well, it's I'm going to have a radio show in the state of Florida starting March 9th. we're in the process of opening up a chain of sports bars and a chain of restaurants in Florida, or many other places. I play golf once a day. My handicap's coming down. I do my share of charitable work, and just live my life the way you're supposed to live it in sunny Florida. It's pretty common, or pretty easy. It just seems like I'm sort of a lightning rod to the press, it seems like. You know, I guess everywhere I go, the press, and I do card shows, which are fun for me. And I know a lot of guys take a lot of static. You know, this guy can go on this network and sell stuff. This guy can go on this network and sell stuff. But if I go on a network and sell stuff, it's wrong.
Well, what bothered them was that you went on the night you were banned from baseball. You were on that same night.
When I sign a contract, Bob, and I'm obligated to do something, I have to be up. I have to show up. I signed a contract to be here on this show. If the plane had been canceled in Boca, I had to start walking to get here. I mean, I pre-signed all the stuff to go on that show. I had no idea I was going to get banned from baseball that day. You know, could have went to court the next week. So what am I supposed to do, call up CVN and say I can't be there tonight?
Well, you could have, really, and they probably would have understood if you said you'd be there another night. It might have looked better.
It's just like if you'd have read the press, you'd have thought that I left my wife in the delivery room and went to do the show in Minneapolis. The truth of the story really is I spent $15,000 of my own money in a private jet going back and forth. I cut the cord on a little girl when she was born. And when my wife went to sleep with some sedatives, I went back to Minnesota to finish my job. And by the time she woke up, I was back in Cincinnati. But you'd have thought I left her there screaming, having a baby, if you'd have read the paper. And that wasn't the way it was. Just little things like that were inaccuracies in the press. And I don't want to get into it, but there's so many things that were... See, there was a reason for that, Bob. Let me explain it. I didn't hit on this. But when the investigation was going on, I was told by Mr. Giamatti not to say a word until the investigation was over. So now this allegation comes out I'm a drug dealer. This allegation comes out I'm a money launderer. This allegation comes out that I'm betting $5,000 a race when I go to the horse track. This allegation I beat bookies kids up. So everybody...
They said you stiffed bookies, too.
Yeah,
or you only paid them half of what you owed them.
Sure I did. Yeah, that's a good habit to get into, stiffing bookies. Yeah, the reality of the thing that
Well, you know how they answered that? They let you off because you're Pete Rose.
Sure.
They would have broken my legs, but they let you off.
Oh, you bet, huh?
No, this is purely hypothetical. You thought you had me.
I forgot what I was talking about.
You were talking about the press and some of the things that they said.
Oh, and then what happened, I think, is most of the press, they chose their allegiance before all the facts were out. They believed everything that was written. They believed everything that came out. I mean, one of my good friends, and I got the utmost respect for him, Johnny Bench. He came out and said, "Why don't he say no to these allegations?" I couldn't. I wasn't allowed. Because the boss said, don't do it, and the boss was Giamatti. Now all of a sudden everyone believes I did this, they believe I did that, they believe I did this. Now they can't change because they wrote so many negative articles about me. That's the way it is in Cincinnati. I mean, the guys can't write a decent thing about me because now they're hypocritical if they do.
Let me ask you one baseball question before we wrap this up. Earlier you said Joe Jackson was a better player than you were. He had over 350 lifetime.
Yeah, he's good.
Now, you have more hits than anybody, and you are one of the most famous athletes of any kind of the modern era. But how good a baseball player were you? Where do you put yourself among the all-time greats?
On the best team in history of baseball, I'd be the utility man because I could play 5 positions. And I think I could probably play better in Field of Dreams than Joe Jackson did.
Than the actor who played Joe Jackson? Well, hell, the actor who played Joe Jackson was batting right-handed. And Jackson was a left-handed hitter.
Right.
So you could have hit either way.
I could have did both. No, I just think that, you know, there's so many great players. I mean, you know, is Aaron better than Mays? Is Mays better than Clemente? All I can do is tell you the greatest baseball player in the history of baseball is Babe Ruth. And I don't give a darn if if someone else just like him comes down the pike 10 years from now, because Babe Ruth saved baseball. Babe Ruth made it possible for me to play baseball. If Babe Ruth would have been a soccer player, soccer would be the nation's #1 sport today, because he saved franchise after franchise by going in for a weekend and saving the franchise, enabling baseball to grow. And Babe Ruth probably wasn't the best baseball player ever to play, but he's the greatest in my eyes.
Back after this. That wraps it up for night 2 with Pete Rose. Good to see you again. Thanks
okay,
very
Bob,
much.
nice seeing you. Thank you very much.
See you later, everybody.